Dr. Lisa Morgan stared at her computer screen, her coffee growing cold beside her keyboard. The numbers didn't make sense. They couldn't make sense. But there they were, clear as day on her monitor at the Nevada Advanced Research Facility. "Hey Chris, can you look at this?" She called out to her research partner, Dr. Chris Baker, who was working at the quantum containment chamber across the lab. He walked over, adjusting his glasses. "What's wrong?" "These readings, the quantum field isn't just bending. It's creating some kind of temporal bubble." The discovery had started as an accident. They had been working on new ways to shield spacecraft from radiation when their equipment picked up strange energy patterns. Now, 3 months later, they were looking at something that should have been impossible. Lisa pointed to a graph on her screen. "See this spike? Every time we run the test, time inside the chamber slows down for exactly 3.7 microseconds." Chris leaned closer, his eyes widening. That's impossible. You're saying we're affecting the actual flow of time, not just affecting it. We're controlling it." The implications hit them both at the same time. This wasn't just a scientific breakthrough. This was something that could change everything. Above Earth's atmosphere, hidden behind the moon, a sleek silver ship hung silently in space. Inside, alien observers watched their sensors with growing concern. One of them, a tall figure with blue-tinted skin, turned to their commander. "High Observer, the humans have done it. They've discovered temporal manipulation." The High Observer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "So soon? Their species is barely 1,000 years into spaceflight. Should we alert the Council?" "Not yet. Continue monitoring. Perhaps it's just an anomaly." Back on Earth, things were moving quickly. Within hours of confirming their discovery, Lisa and Chris found themselves in a secure briefing room deep beneath the facility. They sat at a long table, surrounded by military officers and government officials. Commander John Russell of the Earth Defense Force stood at the front of the room, his presence commanding attention. "Dr. Morgan, please explain what you found, in simple terms." Lisa took a deep breath. "We can create bubbles where time moves differently. Right now, we can only slow time down for a fraction of a second, in a space the size of a tennis ball. But the theory suggests we could do much more." "How much more?" asked Commander Russell. "With the right equipment, we could potentially freeze time completely in an area the size of a battleship, maybe bigger." The room erupted in whispers. A gray-haired man at the end of the table raised his hand. "Dr. Morgan, I'm Deputy Director Alan White of Special Projects. Are you saying we could stop time itself?" "Not exactly stop it," Lisa explained. "More like, create areas where time moves so slowly that it might as well be stopped. And theoretically, we could do the opposite too. Make time move faster in contained areas." Commander Russell leaned forward. "How long until we can scale this up?" "With proper funding and resources, maybe 6 months for a working prototype." "You have 3 months," Russell replied. "As of now, this is a top priority project. Code name, Chronosphere." Over the next few weeks, the facility transformed. New equipment arrived daily. Additional scientists and engineers joined the team. Security increased dramatically. Lisa and Chris worked around the clock, pushing the boundaries of their discovery. The breakthrough came on a quiet Tuesday evening. Lisa was running another test, this time with a modified quantum field generator. The target was a small clock inside the test chamber. "Starting test number 247. She spoke into her recorder. "Field strength at 75%. She pressed the activation button. The air inside the chamber shimmed slightly, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The clock inside slowed, its second hand moving like it was stuck in molasses. Then it stopped completely. Lisa checked her instruments. Time inside the bubble had slowed to practically 0, and it was stable. "Chris, get in here." He rushed in from the break room, still holding a sandwich. "What is it?" "Look." She pointed to the chamber. 3 minutes have passed out here. But in there, Less than a microsecond. Chris put down his sandwich. Forgotten. A perfect temporal bubble. How long can you maintain it? That's the best part. Lisa grinned. Power consumption is minimal. We could keep this running for days. Above Earth, the alien observer's sensors went crazy. The High Observer immediately sent an emergency transmission to the Galactic Council. Emergency Priority 1. Humans have achieved stable temporal manipulation. Repeat. Humans have achieved stable temporal manipulation. Requesting immediate intervention protocol. The response came within minutes. Continue observation. Council representatives en route. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Back at the facility, Commander Russell called an emergency meeting. This time, the room was packed with military brass and government officials. The atmosphere was tense. Ladies and gentlemen, Russell began, what you're about to see changes everything. He nodded to Lisa. She pulled up a video on the main screen. It showed their latest test, a temporal bubble large enough to encompass a small car. Inside the bubble, a clock ran so slowly it appeared frozen, while outside, several hours passed in minutes. We can now create stable temporal fields, Lisa explained. We can slow time to a near stop in controlled areas. With more development, we could potentially affect larger areas, maybe even entire ships or small battle groups. An admiral in the front row spoke up. Could this be weaponized? Lisa and Chris exchanged looks. Yes, Chris answered. Theoretically, we could trap enemy ships in bubbles where time nearly stops. They'd be frozen in place, unable to move or react. We could also accelerate time in contained areas, causing materials to age rapidly. How long until we could have a working weapon system? The Admiral asked. The technology is scalable, Lisa replied. We've already designed satellites that could generate temporal fields. With proper funding and resources, we could have a defensive grid within 6 months. Commander Russell stood up. You have the funding. Whatever you need. This is now Earth's top priority project. As the meeting ended, Lisa walked to the window of the conference room. The desert stretched out before her, peaceful and unchanged. But she knew everything had changed. Humanity had unlocked the ability to manipulate time itself. In her pocket, her phone buzzed. A text from Chris. News from the observatory. Multiple large objects just appeared at the edge of the solar system. They're heading our way. Lisa looked up at the sky, now turning purple with the setting sun. She knew their discovery would change humanity's future. She just didn't realize how soon that future would arrive. The aliens were coming. But this time, Earth would be ready for them. This time, Earth had a weapon that even the mighty Galactic Council couldn't counter. Time itself was about to become humanity's greatest defense. The massive alien ship appeared in the sky above Washington, D.C. on a sunny Wednesday morning. It hung there like a giant silver arrow, nearly 2 miles long, its surface gleaming in the sunlight. Smaller ships circled around it like bees around their hive. Deputy Director Susan Carter stood at the Pentagon's window, watching the display of alien power with narrow eyes. How many ships total? She asked. 15 that we can detect, replied Commander John Russell, standing beside her. The big 1 and 14 escorts. They're staying just outside our atmosphere. And our temporal defense systems. Not ready yet. Dr. Morgan needs at least 2 more weeks. Susan turned away from the window. We might not have 2 weeks. The alien ships had arrived 3 hours ago. Since then, they had done nothing but hover and broadcast a simple message in perfect English. We come representing the Galactic Council. We request immediate diplomatic contact. In the Nevada facility, Lisa Morgan worked frantically at her computer, surrounded by empty coffee cups. Chris Baker paced behind her, reading out numbers from another screen. Power output is stable, he said. The temporal field is holding a test size. Lisa rubbed her tired eyes. It's not enough. We need it bigger, much bigger. Their latest test had created a time bubble the size of a small house. Inside it, time slowed to nearly a stop. but they needed something that could cover an entire alien ship. A soldier burst into the lab. "Dr. Morgan, Dr. Baker, you're needed in the command center. The aliens are sending down representatives." The meeting was set for noon in a specially prepared conference room at the United Nations. Susan Carter sat at the table with other world leaders and military commanders. Commander Russell stood behind her, hands clasped behind his back. The alien delegation entered exactly at noon. Their leader stood nearly 7 feet tall, with blue-tinted skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. He wore flowing robes covered in strange symbols. "I am High Commissioner Zixtal of the Galactic Council," he announced, his voice surprisingly human-like. "We come with grave concerns about your species' recent activities." Susan kept her face neutral. "Welcome to Earth, High Commissioner. I am Deputy Director Susan Carter. What concerns bring you to our world?" Zixtal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "You have discovered temporal manipulation technology. This is forbidden for young species. It poses too great a risk to the fabric of space-time." "Forbidden?" Susan's voice hardened slightly. "By whose authority?" "The Galactic Council represents over 10,000 species. We maintain peace and order in this galaxy. Temporal manipulation technology has been restricted for the good of all." Commander Russell stepped forward. "And if we choose to continue our research?" The High Commissioner's skin darkened slightly, perhaps their version of a frown. "That would be unwise. We require you to cease all temporal research immediately and surrender all related data and equipment." The room erupted in angry mutters. Susan raised a hand for silence. "High Commissioner," she said carefully, "Earth is not a member of your council. We have not agreed to your rules. The technology we've developed comes from our own research, our own efforts." "Nevertheless," Zixtal replied, "you will comply. You have 48 hours to surrender all temporal technology and research. After that." He let the threat hang in the air. Back in Nevada, Lisa and Chris watched the meeting on a secure feed. As soon as it ended, they got a call from Susan. "How close are we?" she asked without preamble. Lisa glanced at her latest results. "We've managed to stabilize larger fields. With the satellite network in place, we could theoretically create temporal bubbles large enough to trap their ships." "Theoretically isn't good enough. We need it working." "Give us 36 hours, Chris said. "We're close to a breakthrough." In orbit, hidden satellites were already being positioned. Earth had known this day might come. The temporal defense grid wasn't complete, but it was their only hope. The next day, and a half passed in a blur of activity. Around the world, military forces went on high alert. Civilian populations were quietly evacuated from major cities. In Nevada, Lisa and her team worked without rest. The breakthrough came with just 4 hours to spare. "Look at this," Chris called out, pointing at his screen. "If we link multiple field generators in a synchronized pattern." Lisa leaned over his shoulder, then broke into a wide smile. "That's it. The fields will support each other, allowing for much larger bubbles without additional power drain." They immediately called Susan and Commander Russell. "We can do it," Lisa announced. "The defense grid will work. We can create temporal fields large enough to trap their entire fleet if we have to." "How sure are you?" Russell asked. 90%. We've run all the simulations. The math works." Susan's voice was firm. "Get ready to deploy on my signal. I'm going to meet with the High Commissioner again." The final meeting was tense. Susan sat alone at the table, facing Zixtal. "Have you come to surrender your temporal technology?" the alien asked. "No," Susan replied simply. "We have come to declare that Earth will not be threatened or bullied. We have the right to develop our own technology, make our own choices." Zixtal stood, looming over the table. "Then you leave us no choice. We will take the technology by force. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Our defenses are far beyond your capability to breach." Susan smiled slightly. "Perhaps, but tell me, High Commissioner, Can your ships fight if time itself stops around them? For the first time, she saw uncertainty flicker across the alien's features. You're bluffing, he said. You cannot have developed the technology so far in such a short time. Would you bet your fleet on that? The High Commissioner stormed out without another word. Within minutes, the alien ships began moving into attack formation. Susan contacted the Nevada facility. Dr. Morgan, are you ready? Lisa sat at her control station, surrounded by screens showing the positions of their hidden satellites. Chris stood beside her, hand on her shoulder. Ready, she replied. On your command. Susan took a deep breath, watching the alien ships descend toward Earth's atmosphere. They had one chance to prove humanity wouldn't be pushed around by the Galactic Council. One chance to show that Earth could stand among the stars as equals. Deploy the temporal defense grid, she ordered. Let's show them what happens when they threaten humanity. Lisa's fingers flew over her keyboard, initiating the sequence they'd practiced dozens of times. Around the Earth, hidden satellites powered up, ready to create the largest temporal bubbles in human history. The alien ships drew closer, weapons charging, not knowing they were about to learn a very important lesson. Never underestimate human ingenuity. The first shots would be fired soon. But Earth was ready. Time itself was about to become a weapon, and the Galactic Council was about to discover that humanity wouldn't give up its independence without a fight. In orbit, the first temporal bubbles began to form, invisible but powerful, waiting to trap their prey. The real battle was about to begin. Major Kate Foster stood at the command center of Earth's lunar base, watching as hundreds of new dots appeared on the massive screen in front of her. The Galactic Council's main fleet had arrived, and it was far bigger than anyone had expected. Count is now at 712 ships, reported her sensor operator. They're forming attack groups. Kate activated her comm link to Earth. Lunar base to command. We have multiple hostile contacts. Request permission to activate temporal defense grid. Susan Carter's voice came back immediately. Permission granted. Don't let any of them get close to Earth. The alien ships spread out in a giant sphere around Earth and the Moon, their formation perfect and threatening. High Commissioner Zixtal's voice boomed across all communication channels. This is your final warning. Surrender your temporal technology, or we will take it by force. You cannot hope to resist the full might of the Galactic Council. In the Nevada facility, Lisa Morgan and Chris Baker monitored the defense grid's power levels. Dozens of scientists worked at surrounding stations, all focused on their screens. All satellites showing green, Chris reported. Temporal field generators at full power. Lisa nodded, her fingers hovering over the activation controls. Ready on your command, Major Foster. The first alien ships began their approach, their weapons charging with bright purple energy. They moved with incredible speed and precision, far more advanced than anything humans had built. Here they come, Kate said quietly. Dr. Morgan, target the first wave. Let's show them what we can do. Lisa pressed the activation sequence. Around Earth, 30 hidden satellites powered up simultaneously. The space between them rippled like heat waves over hot pavement. The first group of alien ships flew straight into the invisible temporal field. In an instant, they slowed to a near stop, caught in a bubble where time moved thousands of times slower than normal. To anyone watching from outside, the ships appeared frozen in space. First wave trapped, Chris shouted. Temporal bubble is stable. On the main alien command ship, High Commissioner Zixtal couldn't believe what he was seeing. Impossible. Their technology shouldn't be this advanced. Launch the second wave, break through their defenses. More alien ships surged forward, trying different approaches. Some attempted to go around the temporal fields, others tried to shoot them with energy weapons. Nothing worked. Each group found itself caught in new temporal bubbles, frozen in space and time. Kate watched from the lunar base as more and more alien ships became trapped. This is incredible. They can't counter it because they've never seen anything like it. In Nevada, Lisa and Chris worked frantically to maintain the temporal fields. Power consumption is higher than expected. Chris warned. We need to be careful not to overextend. Look at their ship's energy readings. Lisa pointed to a screen. They're trying to power through the temporal fields. But the more energy they use, the more it gets slowed down by the field. Chris finished. They're making it worse for themselves. High Commissioner Zixtal was furious. A third of his fleet was now trapped in temporal bubbles, hanging useless in space. None of their advanced weapons could break through the fields. Gather the remaining ships, he ordered. We'll concentrate all our firepower on a single point. No temporal field can withstand our combined energy weapons. The remaining alien ships formed a tight group, their weapons glowing brighter and brighter as they pooled their power. The combined energy reading was off the charts. They're going to try something big, Kate reported to Earth. All their remaining ships are gathering for a concentrated attack. Susan Carter's voice was calm but firm. Dr. Morgan, are the temporal fields strong enough to handle that much energy? Lisa quickly ran calculations on her computer. Yes, but we'll need to do something different. If we create multiple overlapping fields. Do it, Susan ordered. Whatever it takes. The alien fleet fired their combined weapons, a massive beam of purple energy, bigger than anything Earth had ever seen, shot toward the planet. It was powerful enough to crack a continent, but it never reached its target. Lisa activated a new set of satellites, creating layers of temporal fields. As the energy beam passed through each layer, it slowed more and more until it nearly stopped completely. Energy beam contained, Chris announced. It's trapped between temporal layers. The alien ships had used so much power in their attack that they had to shut down their engines temporarily. They hung in space, vulnerable. Now, Kate ordered, while they're powerless. Lisa triggered the final set of satellites, the largest temporal bubble yet formed around the remaining alien fleet, trapping hundreds of ships in near-frozen time. In just under an hour, Earth had defeated the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Not by destroying it, but by trapping it in bubbles where time barely moved. High Commissioner Zixtal stared in disbelief at his frozen fleet. Scenarios like this weren't supposed to be possible. Younger species weren't supposed to be able to defeat the Galactic Council. Kate's voice came over all channels. Attention Galactic Council forces. Your fleet is now trapped in our temporal fields. From your perspective, thousands of years will pass before you break free. Would you like to discuss surrender terms? In Nevada, Lisa finally let herself relax slightly. I can't believe it worked so well. Humans 1, aliens 0. Chris grinned. Though I have to wonder, what happens now? The answer came a few minutes later. A new message from High Commissioner Zixtal. We request immediate diplomatic negotiations. Susan Carter smiled as she received the message in her office. Tell them we'll be happy to negotiate. As equals this time. The battle was over. Earth had stood its ground against the most powerful force in the galaxy and won. Not through superior firepower or advanced shields, but through human ingenuity and the creative use of a fundamental force of nature, time itself. As Kate Foster looked out at the frozen alien fleet from her lunar base, she knew nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, and the galaxy would have to accept it. The war was ending before it really began. But the real challenge, figuring out humanity's new place in the galactic community, was just beginning. Colonel Peter Hayes walked through the halls of the newly established Temporal Defense Command, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. 3 months had passed since Earth trapped the Galactic Council's fleet in temporal bubbles. Now, humanity was ready to show the galaxy they weren't just lucky. They were powerful. Status report, he called out as he entered the command center. Operation Timelock is ready to begin, replied Lieutenant Amy Scott from her station. All temporal satellites are in position around the target star system. Earth had discovered something interesting after their victory. The Galactic Council didn't just have one fleet. They had thousands spread across nearby star systems. And not all of them were happy about Earth's victory. Dr. Lisa Morgan stood beside a large holographic display, pointing out key positions to Chris Baker. The rebel council ships are gathering here, in the Proxima Centauri system. They're planning another attack. Not if we strike first, Peter said firmly. Are the new temporal weapons ready? Lisa nodded. We can now create temporal fields large enough to cover entire star systems, and we've added some new features. In the 3 months since the battle, Lisa and her team had made incredible progress. They could now speed up time as well as slow it down, age objects within temporal fields, and even create corridors of normal time within the frozen zones. The rebel council forces thought they were being clever, gathering in secret. They didn't know Earth could now see their every move, thanks to temporal sensors that could detect ships through time itself. Begin Operation Time Lock, Peter ordered. Show them what happens when they threaten Earth again. Lisa's fingers flew over her control panel. In space, massive temporal generators powered up. They were no longer small satellites but huge stations, each one capable of controlling time in an area larger than Earth's moon. Around Proxima Centauri, space began to ripple. The rebel fleet, nearly 300 ships strong, suddenly found themselves caught in a temporal field bigger than anything they had imagined possible. Temporal field stable, Chris reported. The entire system is now running at 1/1,000,000th normal speed. Peter activated the communication system. This is Colonel Peter Hayes of Earth's Temporal Defense Command. Your fleet is now trapped in a time dilation field. For every second that passes for you, nearly 2 weeks will pass for the rest of the galaxy. The rebel commander's response came through, slowed by the temporal field. This is impossible. No, Peter replied. This is humanity showing you what we can really do. Now let's talk about surrender. In her lab, Lisa was already working on the next phase. She had discovered a way to create time bombs, devices that could age matter within a temporal field by thousands of years in seconds. Look at this, she said to Chris, pointing at a test chamber. Inside, a piece of alien metal from one of the captured ships was exposed to the aging effect. In moments, it crumbled to dust. We can make their ships fall apart around them, Chris whispered, without firing a single shot. The news of Earth's new demonstration spread quickly through the galaxy. One by one, the remaining council fleets stood down. Nobody wanted to risk being trapped in time. Susan Carter, now promoted to Director of Earth Defense, met with her staff to discuss the next steps. We've shown them we can defend ourselves. Now we need to show them we can be reasonable allies. The Council is requesting a meeting, Peter reported. Not just with Earth, but with all spacefaring races. They want to discuss a new galactic order. In the Nevada facility, now expanded into a massive research center, Lisa watched the stars through a window. I never thought our discovery would change things this much, she said to Chris. Are you worried we've gone too far? He asked. She shook her head. No, humanity needed this. We needed to show we couldn't be pushed around. But now we need to show we can be wise with this power. The Galactic Council had learned a hard lesson. They had assumed that because humans were a young species, they couldn't be truly dangerous. They had forgotten that sometimes the most powerful innovations come from fresh perspectives. Director Carter called a meeting of Earth's new Space Defense Council. Representatives from every major nation gathered to discuss their next moves. We have their attention, she said. Now we need to decide what to do with it. We can reshape the galaxy, but we need to be careful how we use this power. Peter pulled up a holographic map showing the known galaxy. We've detected 12 more council fleets moving in this direction, not to attack. They're running away. They're afraid of us now. Good, said Susan. Fear will keep them honest while we establish new relationships. But we won't abuse this power. Earth will be strong, but we will also be just. In her lab, Lisa made another breakthrough. She found a way to create temporal shields, bubbles where time flowed normally inside, while the outside world moved at different speeds. Think about it, she told Chris excitedly. We could explore distant galaxies by making time move faster outside our ships. A journey of 1,000 years could take just days for the crew. The possibilities seemed endless. Humanity had not only defended itself, but had opened up new frontiers of science and exploration. Peter received reports from across the galaxy. More and more alien races were reaching out to Earth, not as superiors or enemies, but as equals. Some even asked for help defending against Council oppression. "We're becoming the very thing the Council feared," Chris observed one evening. "A power that could change the galaxy." "No," Lisa corrected him. "We're becoming something they never expected. A young species that can stand up to bullies while helping those in need." In orbit around Earth, the captured Council ships remained frozen in time, a reminder to all who saw them. Humanity would not be underestimated again. Director Carter prepared for the upcoming galactic meeting. Earth would present its terms: independence, recognition of their right to develop technology, and a new council where all species had equal voice. "The galaxy is changing," she told her staff, "and humanity will help guide that change. Not through force, but through wisdom and innovation." As night fell over the Nevada facility, Lisa looked at her original temporal research notes. Such a simple discovery had changed everything. But she knew the real work was just beginning. Humanity had gained its place among the stars. Now they had to prove they deserved it. Ambassador Mary Wright stood at the window of her ship, watching as they approached the Galactic Council's headquarters. The massive space station hung in orbit around a binary star system, its spiral arms stretching out like a silver flower in space. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Dr. Lisa Morgan said, joining her at the window. In the months since Earth's victory, Lisa had become a key part of diplomatic missions. Nobody understood temporal technology better than her. "Hard to believe we're here as equals now," Mary replied. "Not as a young species begging for recognition." Their ship, the Earth vessel Cronus, was humanity's first faster-than-light vessel. It used temporal bubbles to bend space-time around it, allowing it to cross vast distances in days instead of years. Inside the Council station, representatives from over 10,000 species gathered in the Great Assembly Hall. The room buzzed with nervous energy. Everyone knew this meeting would change the galaxy forever. High Commissioner Zixtel stood at the central podium, his blue skin slightly paler than usual. The defeat of his fleet had changed him. He no longer looked down on younger species. "The Council recognizes the Earth delegation," he announced as Mary and Lisa entered the hall. "They come to present their terms for a new galactic order." Mary walked to the speaker's platform, her step steady and confident. Behind her, massive screens showed the still frozen Council fleet orbiting Earth, a reminder of humanity's power. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began, "we come not to threaten or dominate, but to propose a new way forward. Earth has shown we cannot be bullied or controlled. Now we want to show we can be valuable allies." The hall remained silent, thousands of alien eyes fixed on her. Even the most ancient species paid attention. They had all seen what human temporal technology could do. "Our terms are simple," Mary continued. "First, Earth's independence must be recognized. Second, all species must have the right to develop their own technology without interference. And third, the Council must be reformed to give all members an equal voice." Murmurs spread through the crowd, some angry, some approving. A tall crystalline being rose from its seat. "And if we refuse?" it asked, its voice ringing like chimes. Lisa stepped forward, activating a holographic display. "Then we demonstrate our latest advancement, the ability to create temporal fields that can age entire star systems by millions of years in minutes." The hologram showed a test they had conducted on an uninhabited system. A temporal field enveloped a young star, and they watched as it aged rapidly, turning from yellow to red to a dim white dwarf. A hall erupted in shocked whispers. The power to age stars themselves was beyond anything they had imagined possible. "We don't want to use this power," Mary said firmly. "We want peace, but we will never again allow anyone to treat humanity as inferior." In her seat, Susan Carter washed with pride. She had been promoted to Earth's Secretary of Defense, overseeing all temporal defense projects. Next to her, Colonel Peter Hayes and Chris Baker represented Earth's military and scientific communities. High Commissioner Zixtal raised his hands for silence. The Council has seen Earth's power, but power alone does not earn respect. How will you use this ability? Mary smiled. Let us show you. She nodded to Lisa, who activated another hologram. This one showed Earth's new temporal shields protecting smaller, weaker species from aggressive neighbors. It showed human ships using time manipulation to prevent natural disasters on alien worlds. It showed temporal technology being used to heal and help, not just to fight. We propose sharing some of our temporal technology, Mary announced. Not the weapons, but the beneficial applications. Under proper controls, it could help all species explore and grow. The council chamber grew quiet again, but this time with thoughtful silence rather than fear. A group of elder species representatives huddled together, discussing quietly. Finally, one stepped forward, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form. In all our history, it said, its voice deep and resonant, no species has gained such power and offered to share it. Perhaps it is time for change. Over the next several hours, the council debated. Earth's delegation watched as thousands of years of tradition and hierarchy began to shift. In the end, they voted. The results appeared on the massive screens. Overwhelming support for Earth's proposals. The Council accepts Earth's terms, Zixtal announced formally. A new era begins today. The Treaty of Temporal Accord will establish new rules for all species, guaranteeing independence and the right to develop technology. Mary signed the treaty for Earth. As she did, the frozen Council fleet in Earth's orbit was finally released from its temporal prison, a gesture of good faith for the new agreement. Back in the Nevada facility, now renamed the Global Temporal Research Center, Lisa stood in her old lab. The small chamber where they had first discovered temporal manipulation was now a historical site. Did you ever think it would end like this? Chris asked, joining her. Not end, Lisa corrected him. This is just the beginning. Think about it. We can now explore the galaxy freely. We can help other species. We can learn and grow without fear. In Washington, D.C., Susan Carter met with world leaders to discuss the future. The temporal defense grid would remain, protecting Earth. But now they would also build temporal ships for exploration, temporal shields for colonies, and temporal stations for research. Humanity has grown up, she told them. We're no longer just defending ourselves. We're helping shape the galaxy. The news spread across Earth. The treaty was signed, the Council was reformed, and humanity had earned its place among the stars. Not through conquest or submission, but through innovation and determination. In orbit, the Cronus prepared for its next mission. They would visit young species, not to control them like the old Council, but to help them develop safely. Earth remembered what it was like to be the underdog. They would not forget that lesson. Mary Wright looked out at the stars from the Council station one last time before departing. You know what's funny? She said to Lisa. They thought they were coming to teach us our place in the galaxy. Lisa smiled. Instead, we taught them that every species deserves the chance to find their own place. The galaxy had changed forever. Humanity had proved that being young didn't mean being weak, that innovation could overcome tradition, and that true strength came not just from power, but from how you used it. As Earth's ships spread out among the stars, they carried a simple message. The future belonged to those who dared to shape it, and time itself was no longer a barrier but a bridge to new possibilities. The age of human temporal science had begun, and with it, a new chapter in galactic history. Not as conquerors or subjects, but as equals among the stars.